Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik, Voss, and this is a breakdown of Rick and Morty Season 7, Episode 6, Rickfending Your Mort, which is a play on Defending Your Life, a 1991 Albert Brooks film about a man on trial in the afterlife to see if he gets reincarnated. Dan Harmon has always had kind of a thing for clip show episodes on sitcoms. Like, we saw him make fun of this in Community Season 2, Episode 21, Paradigms of Human Memory. He kind of treats clip shows as an exercise to come up with as many bonkers premises as possible, or for the writer's room to use their "we'll never actually do this" pitch, and then kind of showcase them as a "remember when we did this" cutaway gag from episodes that we actually never saw. This is how we got the anthology episodes of the past, like Interdimensional Cable 1 and 2, Total Rickall, Morty's Mind Blowers, and really the opening credits of every season. They always throw in a few bullshit examples. I love these episodes, so let's break down this one for all the Easter eggs, callbacks, and inside jokes that you might have missed. We open on Morty finding Rick drunk on the floor of the garage, blowing some raspberries, apparently coping with the fallout of the unmort Rickon episode last time. Rick ended that episode in kind of a catatonic state now that he's killed his nemesis, but he could just be getting drunk because it's a Tuesday. He kind of looks like the Rick that Evil Morty's Rick became after Evil Morty gave him that 6-pack of foamies. But now our Rick has moved on from foamies to the hard liquor. Morty cashes in a whole stack of Morty's Adventure cards. We first saw these in the Season 3 episode Vindicators 3 Return of Worldender, and they came back in Rattlestar Rick Lactica after winning a bet with Rick in the Me Seeks and Destroy episode. Morty came up with this kind of system of choosing every 10th adventure. And since Rick doesn't remember punching these, Morty provides receipts, and this list is hilarious. Most of these are completely made up. We see Zorbulok's Death Race, Memory Planet, and a subset for Memory of Memory Planet, which kind of seems like Morty's saying the memory of it was as vivid and legit adventure-y as visiting the planet itself. So it's kind of like an Inception sort of deal. Then Labradoodle Brain Heist, which kind of feels like Morty referencing the Snuffle/Snowball episode where dogs' brains were enhanced. Interplanetary Cricket World Cup, Isle of Mortysaurs. There is a Mortysaurus character in the mobile game Pocket Mortys, but this also kind of feels like an Isla Nublar reference, a la Jurassic Mort. Beanie Babies Zombie Apocalypse ×2, so you know it happened twice. I guess we never learned our lessons from the first time it happened. Dark Brunch, Regional Plumbing Convention, Takes One to Know One, Getting Good at Yo-Yo Tricks, Chicken Sandwich Waffle, Soda Can Grenade Business. Specifically, the Card 2 list reads like complete bullshit that Morty made up, or maybe just memorable experiences for Morty that he just counts as adventures. But you know what? There have been plenty of episodes on this series that started as these kind of innocuous quests, like training crows or getting Szechuan sauce or spaghetti night, that always veer into something sinister. Rick accuses Morty of making them up, like he did the titles of an MS readathon at his school, which is darkly ironic because one of the symptoms of multiple sclerosis is memory loss. Rick says,
"Don't grift a grifter, Morty. I got friends in cosmic places."
Don't bullshit a bullshitter is kind of a common expression, but I'm reminded of Walter White calling out a similar student trying to con him into giving him a higher score.
Don't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah, and it's pretty funny here how fast Rick sobers up just to win this argument with Morty and to not have to do something. So Rick calls in an audit from the Observer, which is an all-seeing race of geodes. The Observers were also the name of a similar all-seeing race in Mystery Science Theater 3000 who carried their brains around in little bowls. We're also, of course, reminded of the Watcher from the Marvel Universe. The first memory, titled Truth or Dare. Rick and Morty slide into a temple.
2 attack patterns and a giant glowing weak spot. Legend of Zelda tutorial-ass bullshit.
Yes, of course, the Zelda games are famous for their hand-holdy tutorials with basic quests and easy enemies. The whole temple glows blue and orange like the shrines from Breath of the Wild, but they encounter 2 guards that look like the knight-like enemies from Dark Souls games. But one glows blue with orange eyes, one glows orange with blue eyes, and they say that one of them tells truth, the other one lies, which is a reference to the famous thought experiment and also one of the best scenes from Labyrinth. To solve this puzzle, the trick is you have to ask either of the guards which door the other guard would say would lead to the escape, because both guards will indicate the same door, which would be the door that doesn't lead out, so you would take the opposite door. But Rick finds his own kind of incredible Rick Sanchez workaround by asking,
"You ever this guy's wife?"
Yes. Well, how about that? He guessed right.
I forgive you.
Yes, the liar says I forgive you because he doesn't actually forgive him. You get it. Okay, the next clip, Late Night Western, where Rick makes Morty portal to a Carl's Jr. to get a Western bacon cheeseburger. While it seems like it's nothing, Rick was banned from this Carl's Jr., which could have been for any Rick-related dark sci-fi reason, so who knows what Morty had to go through to get this burger. Could have been a valid adventure. When Rick crosses off this one, we also see IRL FNAF simulation, Five Nights at Freddy's. Since this was a Rick adventure, according to Morty, I just kind of of like that he might have pushed Morty into reenacting a Five Nights at Freddy's scenario despite it being a game played by younger gamers. Rick and Morty has parodied Five Nights at Freddy's a few times in the online video Glorp De Glorp Plays 10 Tuesdays at Tinkles, and in a social media post with a fake movie poster for Five Nights at Terry's starring Scary Terry. Also visible is the next case, Maximum Overdrive with clothes. So Maximum Overdrive is a 1986 movie written and directed by Stephen King. It's very campy and very fun. The machines come to life and start attacking humanity. We see Morty and Rick in a mall wearing boxes because clothes are attacking, and a bunch of clothes jump on a woman, rip her face off, and start to wear it. Rick flips to another page, but this is actually the very first page covering cards 1 and 2 that we saw before, but if you look at it closely, but from this, Rick reads the next case, Whistling Dixie. This is a parody of the Blade franchise. Rick and Morty fight vampires in Blade gear and sunglasses. The vampires burst into flames when they're slashed with silver. Morty even has a little pencil mustache like Wesley Snipes had. They meet Whistler, the character played in these movies by Chris Christopherson. Whistler was really Blade's weapons guy, but here he just spends way too much time describing a new vampire killing weapon incorporating holy water, UV light, mirror-tipped wooden stakes, and dry aged Sicilian garlic. I love the little scent trail from the garlic. But Rick and Morty get bored and portal away, leaving him to die. Next, they argue.
People died!
So by your logic, 9/11 was an adventure?
The Observer starts to throw to a 9/11 clip, and Rick and Morty stop him. Rick and Morty almost did a 9/11 themselves in the season 4 episode Primordius, and it was a bit controversial at the time, so I'm not surprised that they stopped the Observer from showing it. Leg Day is a clip that we've been seeing in trailers for this season.
I'm a leg! A leg, Morty!
This, of course, is a callback to the Pickle Rick episode, which got a mention from Evil Morty last episode. It seems like the writers have just kind of a real love-hate relationship for how Pickle Rick got memed to hell. Like back in the garage, Rick is a crappy, unlicensed Leg Rick t-shirt that says, Rick is I'm a leg, Rick and Morty show, which kind of seems like a nod to all the goofy, unlicensed Pickle Rick shirts that went around a few years back. Then, in a memory the Observer just cues up, Morty gets punched in the wrong spot into one of Rick's cybernetic implants he put into him that causes him to turn into a boat, and going through this transformation frame by frame is just freaky. His eye pops out, his leg and his arm bulge, and then he just bloats into a boat. And I love how the hull has the same blue and yellow colors as Morty's clothes. The bullies sail Morty on the open seas, and Morty has to spit out some seawater that goes into his boat mouth, but then the bully slaps the wrong spot, turning Morty back human again. It's kind of a castaway situation. Big Doug dies, leaving Morty and the other bully to punch Morty to try to turn him back into a boat. They're both sobbing, but Rick rescues Morty and leaves the other behind.
Come on, the hamster's turned on me, Morty. We gotta go.
A little hamster hops out of the portal. I might be overthinking it, but knowing Rick, this might be kind of a Richard Gere conspiracy theory thing. Rick and Morty talk some shit.
He thinks he's hosting a clip show, and I don't like his voice.
I don't like his voice. I don't like that he's doing jokes.
Yeah, it kind of sounds like the Observer is voiced by Dan Harmon, as it is pretty much his Don Pardo voice from the Interdimensional Cable episode.
Saturday Night Live!
The key is grouping them with thematic connections.
So it's kind of fun to think of this episode as the writers rebelling against Old Man Harmon, like they might be asking to fact check his mental archives if a premise has ever been done before, but then whenever they ask him that, he kind of gets carried away with referencing a ton of old bits, and they can't really get any work done. So Rick just pays the Observer and then rudely sends him off, and while they're eating burritos, they hear him clipping outside to diet shame them.
Don't find a carb on my plate, Morty. I'm all about that keto. No. I'm a fats man. Give me all the fat.
So I guess some adventure in question is Rick trying a low-carb keto diet where he still just eats animal fat. Then the next clip shows Rick bleeding out, his cybernetic guts looking exactly like they did after he fought Rick Prime last episode. They are fighting an Apeborg. An Apeborg is actually a brand of NFTs. Rick gets Morty to lick the inside of his nostril, which brings us back to this bar, the Salty Rick, and it's filled with particularly salty, mean-looking Roadhouse Ricks. There's a chalkboard of Morty bets, like the Death Pool board in the Deadpool movie, and these bets include Morty marries Mr. Poopy Butthole, which is already crossed out. So somewhere in the multiverse, Morty ended Mr. Poopy Butthole's single streak, then believe he's a ghost, like a Sixth Sense situation, murder/suicide with president, stick tongue fully up an Apeborg's nose, common law marry a hippo, chug salad dressing, become Santa Claus, drink toilet water. There's some stuff that's a lot easier to get into than out of. Tight parking spots, complicated romantic relationships, financial debt. First thing you know, your car's making a weird noise, then all of a sudden you're staring at your grocery receipt wondering if you really need shampoo this month. It's no fun. PDS Debt can help. PDS Debt offers free debt analysis service to help make getting out of debt easier. PDS Debt has customized options for anyone struggling with credit cards, personal loans, collections, or medical bills. They roll all of your payments into one low interest-free monthly payment, which makes it easier to pay off your debt in a fraction of the time. Everyone with $10,000 or more in eligible debt qualifies. There's no minimum credit score required, so even if your credit rating's hurting, you can still take advantage of PDS Debt's offer and save thousands of dollars in interest and fees. PDS Debt is offering a free debt analysis. It only takes 30 seconds. Head over to pdsdebt.com/rockstars to get your free debt assessment today. The Observer takes on the whole family now. First, Beth, a moment she chugged wine hidden in the toilet tank. Next, Jerry, who in this clip eats cereal while watching something on his tablet that is folded back, propped up on the counter, which is just like classic dad energy. Rick throws away a diamond. Jerry goes for it, gets a handful of syringes. His piss turns into acid, interrupting the party in the break room down below as he screams, "I can't stop once I start!" Now, Summer's shame might be the hardest I laugh this episode because she just can't get selected by a hottie snatcher, as in a body snatcher, but it's a hottie snatcher. It only takes hot people.
I need to know.
Just that pause of her praying and hoping she'll get taken, but instead the hotties next door get taken, but not Summer and Principal Vagina. Space Beth's shame is just farting during a briefing with Bird Person about dichotomous Daniel. We also see the crew that we saw her with in Star Mort, Rick Turn of the Jerry, a crew that also included a female Squanchy, the Rebel Doctor, and dichotomous Daniel here. Makes sense that he would be playing both sides because he is dichotomous. Then we see several clips. Morty steals cash from Rick's wallet, where we just see Rick's ID, and in the photo he looks drunk. Then Rick walking a Morty dog at a dog show. Morty and Rick preparing to jump into a massive vat of whale semen, which kind of feels like a vat of acid callback, as well as that barrel of horse semen and Rick dependent spray that ended up being Morty's. Ugh. Morty then gets aggressive.
What? You gonna beat me up like the piss guy? Hey!
A reference to the Piss Master from the season 6 episode Analyze Piss. Morty kills the Observer, and this is revealed to be a clip at Morty and Rick's trial. So in addition to defending your life, the second half of this episode might remind you of the Seinfeld finale, where Jerry, George, Kramer, and Elaine are on trial and being reminded of the worst things they had done throughout the series. Yes, Seinfeld's finale was a clip show, which might be part of Dan Harmon's hatred of this format, because one of the best sitcoms of all time ended with one of the laziest written finales. I love Seinfeld. The series went out on a high, but I just can't justify them ending the series that way. Rick reminds us that they already did this whole thing, but with giants, and we cut back to a moment that actually was a flashback to a real past Rick and Morty episode, the Me Seeks and Destroy episode, the one that really started Morty's adventure card as a tradition, where they killed a giant atop the beanstalk and had to go through the whole giant judicial system, and then later in that episode Morty was sexually assaulted by King Jellybean. Arguably, Rick continues to honor these Morty adventure cards because he feels so bad about what happened to Morty on that adventure, an adventure that was supposed to be harmless and fun. But the show even calling out the fact that they've already done this is an example of hanging a lantern in screenwriting. That's when writers call out hack writing before the audience realizes it, to signal to them that the writers are aware of the flaw. We're just kind of making a joke out of it. Generally, you can pull this move once per movie or per episode, but the trick of it is timing it. And that's why hanging a lantern, I think, is a valid move for writers to pull, because timing it can be really hard. You have to time it precisely as the audience starts to see what you're doing. If you do it too early, they won't get it. If you do it too late, they'll be ahead of you. So it's kind of a hard move to pull. Next, we see a series of clips where Rick gives Morty a gorilla gun, which he learns is not a gun that turns someone into a gorilla, but it's a gun that is supposed to kill gorillas. So back in the garage, Rick gives Morty a bully gun, which Morty uses on himself, thinking he'll turn into a bully, but then we hard cut to Morty with a huge hole in his chest. So then Rick gives him a real gun and says it's to shoot bad people, but it shoots out Jeffrey Dahmer, the cannibalistic serial killer. Yes, it shoots bad people. And since these clips are no longer even about mistakes, but just them doing dumb things, the observers debate whether these characters have been growing over the course of the series. So next we see a pet cemetery, and it's spelled the way it is in Stephen King's novel, as they try to resurrect Ben Franklin using the pet cemetery, where the soil kind of resurrects people and animals into zombie form. We've actually been seeing this zombie out of the grave shot in the opening sequences of every episode this season. Rick tests the zombie soil to collect data, and we see various clocks all over the graveyard, various revival times on notes. They push a car in to see if it will refill the tank. They push a kangaroo halfway into the dirt to see if its legs will come back. This just kind of feels like the writers were just debating pet cemetery logic at some point in the room. They had wrapped Ben Franklin in foil to protect him from evil, but it just cooked him, and Rick gets hungry. There's a lot of cannibalism this season, and even the observers call it out.
There's nothing sacred to you two.
And then in another clip, Morty makes Rick make his churro come to life.
Churry, do you want to have fun?
Let's go!
Yeah, the music here is very much inspired by Randy Newman's "You Got a Friend in Me" from Toy Story. And it's pretty much the montage of Andy playing with Woody at the beginning of that movie. By the way, Jessica Clemens and our origin story is when we were on a sketch team several years ago, and she wrote a Randy Newman bit for me to play, where Randy Newman would be hired by people to break up with their significant other for them by singing this song. It's not you, it's me. So Morty and Churry catch a marlin deep sea fishing with, it looks like Ernest Hemingway. Ernest Hemingway did write The Old Man in the Sea, and Ernest Hemingway is the subject of one of the darkest jokes in this series.
I wish that shotgun was my penis.
If it were, you could call me Ernest Hemingway.
I don't get it, and I don't need to.
Then we head to Wes Anderson's Grand Hot Tub Emporium that looks like the titular hotel from the Grand Budapest Hotel. We see overhead shots and various hot tubs with symmetrical framing and vibrant colors, exactly the kind of imagery that Wes Anderson loves to do. In one shot, Morty is wearing a little orange beanie cap, making him look like Steve Zissou from Life Aquatic. Then Rick reveals Churry is functionally immortal, so they have to abandon him on a desert planet with normal churros, which is kind of like how Jesse gets abandoned in Toy Story 2 or Lotso in Toy Story 3. A lot of abandonment in those movies. Another clip shows a time Rick just murdered for fun.
I did it, Morty! I killed the versions of us that were in Space Jam!
Rick and Morty are in fact Warner IP and did have a cameo in Space Jam 2: A New Legacy. Rick says that those two welcome death, they want it out. And Morty, by the way, I forgot that was reading Chicken Soup for the Golfer's Soul. Rick uses a third arm under his jacket to play a clip of the other time he did leg day and then plays back all the observers' shame. Like when they watch a guy drown, and since that memory came from another angle, they realize two observers watched him drown. This guy, by the way, looks like he's from the same species as the one who married Slow Mobius' wife in the post-credit scene of last episode. We see another observer selling bootleg DVDs. He says he's got Avatar 3 through 6 with incomplete VFX, but they're still blue. I love this because there are 5 total planned avatars. There's also a copy of Batgirl, which was famously shelved for a tax write-off by this parent company, Warner Brothers Discovery. You can also see Babylon, Amsterdam, Oppenheimer Requiem, several mushroom clouds on that cover, and then The Social Network 3 into the metaverse with someone wearing VR goggles. Another observer offers 2 homeless watermelons money to fight each other. We see the judge observer having sex with a prosecutor's wife, calling back the blue and orange guards from the beginning of the episode. Just a lot of using infidelity to turn people against each other. Also, like, there's a photo of the prosecutor Tom on the bedside table, so Rick and Morty uses fight to escape. And now Rick gives Morty 80 cents on the dollar for the punch cards, even though he already gave him 70 cents on the dollar and ripped up 30% of them. So basically meeting Rick halfway with the 70% that Rick said was bullshit. And Morty says,
They say, Rick, fly through space, come upon something, maybe I have a moral objection, stuff gets messy, and you ultimately bail us out?
yep, which is basically the premise of most of these episodes. Rick says they're back and he gives Morty another gun. So after some heavy canon episodes, the series is back with a total Rickall style madness that I actually prefer to the canon mythology of the series. Oh, and onto the post-credit scene, Morty is frightened to find a churro in his locker, but Troy eats it and it's just a regular churro. But then he also sees soon written in brown sugar. So remember, there are exactly 8 churro sticks on that desert planet. So I hope throughout this series and the remaining episodes, we get exactly 7 more warning churros before Churry gets his true revenge. If you want to support our channel, grab yourself some holiday merch from nerdriot.shop. It's perfect for all the good nerds on your holiday shopping list. Follow me on social platforms at Voss. Follow New Rockstars. Thank you to Jordan Morris for helping write this breakdown. Subscribe to New Rockstars for more analysis of everything you love. Thanks for watching. Bye.